In the summer of 1720, two women stepped onto a stolen ship in Nassau Harbour and helped turn the Caribbean into their own hunting ground. Their names were Anne Bonny and Mary Read. For 2 short months they sailed with a pirate crew, robbing merchant ships and fishing boats from the Bahamas down to Jamaica. Anne Bonny had already broken every rule that was supposed to hold a woman in place. She was born around 1698, most likely in Ireland, the daughter of a lawyer and his servant. The family moved to the Carolina colony, where her father built a plantation. Anne grew up hot-tempered and independent. She married a sailor named James Bonny, but the marriage soured fast. When James took a pardon and started informing on pirates for the British governor in Nassau, Anne left him. She fell in with John Calico Jack Rackham, the captain of a small crew that operated out of the pirate haven. Mary Read's path was just as unusual. Born in England around the 1680s, she had been raised as a boy, so her mother could claim family money. She kept the disguise into adulthood. She served in the British Army, fought on the battlefields of Flanders, and even married a Flemish soldier. After he died, she sailed to the West Indies still dressed as a man. When her ship was taken by pirates, she joined them. By 1720, she had ended up in Nassau, where she met Rackham and signed on. On August 22nd, 1720, Rackham, Anne, Mary, and about a dozen men stole a sleek 10-gun sloop called the William right out of Nassau Harbour. They slipped away under cover of night. Governor Woodes Rogers, who had been sent to clean up the pirate nest, was furious. By September 5th, he had posted a proclamation naming Anne Bonny, listed as Anne Fulford alias Bonny, and the rest of the crew as wanted pirates. For the next 2 months, the William prowled the waters between the Bahamas and Jamaica. They hit small merchant sloops and fishing boats, taking cargo, money, and whatever else they could carry. Anne and Mary were not passengers. Trial witnesses later said both women dressed in men's jackets and trousers, tied handkerchiefs around their heads, and carried machetes and pistols. One captured woman, Dorothy Thomas, described how they stood out during a raid. They cursed and swore at their own crew, threatening to kill anyone who held back. Another witness remembered Anne handing gunpowder to the men during fights. They fought like the rest of the crew, and the crew knew exactly who they were. The run ended on the night of October 22nd, 1720, off Negril Point on the western tip of Jamaica. The pirates had anchored and were drinking with some local turtle fishermen. A former privateer named Jonathan Barnett crept up in his own sloop. When the shooting started, most of Rackham's men were too drunk or too slow to put up much of a fight. Anne and Mary were among the few who kept firing. The William was taken without any deaths on either side. The prisoners were hauled to Spanish Town, Jamaica. Rackham and the male crew were tried first on November 16th. They were convicted of piracy and hanged 10 days later in Port Royal. Anne and Mary stood trial on November 28th. 4 witnesses testified. The court found them guilty and sentenced them to hang. Then both women did something that saved them for the moment. They pleaded their bellies. They claimed they were pregnant. Under British law, a pregnant woman could not be executed until after she gave birth. A jury of matrons examined them and confirmed the claims. The hangings were postponed. Mary Read never left prison. She died in April 1721, probably of fever. She was buried on April 28th in St Catherine's Parish Churchyard, listed simply as Mary Read, Pirate. Anne Bonny stayed alive. The records say she was kept in prison through her pregnancy, and then reprieved again and again. After that, the trail goes cold. There is one possible clue. A burial register in the same parish lists an Anne Bonny, who died on December 29th, 1733. If it is her, she lived quietly in Jamaica for another dozen years. No one knows for sure. What happened in those 61 days on the William was small by pirate standards, only a handful of raids on coastal traders. But 2 women had stood shoulder to shoulder with armed men, taken ships and stared down the noose. The trial papers and the governor's proclamation made their names official. 300 years later, the story still travels because it is simple and true. In an age when women were told exactly where they belonged, Anne Bonny and Mary Read simply refused. They sailed, they fought, and they left their mark on the Caribbean.